Welcome, I am the Loud Little Ducky. Today is going to be a summary of the Sandra Birchmore case that is happening out of Canton, Massachusetts. We are looking at seeking justice for Sandra Birchmore. And this is a story of when admiration and respect for military and law enforcement as a child turns to where people that should be heroes become perpetrators or worse. Sandra Birchmore was a 23-year-old soon-to-be mom for the first time. She worked as a teacher's assistant at Sharon Public Schools in Massachusetts. Birchmore grew up in Stoughton, Massachusetts, but eventually moved to Canton, Massachusetts, which is about a 10 to 15 minute drive away from each other, as well as her job is about a 10-15 minute drive from where she lives as well. She was said to have some mental and emotional issues, and after the passing of her grandmother and mother in 2016, when Birchmore was a teenager, caused even more difficulty in life. Her dad was never around, and another aunt died in 2019. Birchmore was described as a quirky, smart, kind, and a bit of an oversharer. She sounds like she likes to talk a lot and very personable, very social is what she sounds like. And I like people that are a little bit quirky. Even though Birchmore had her own personal struggles, she was so excited to be a mom. She was only 3 months along, but already shopping and getting things ready for the baby. Birchmore did have an Aunt Darlene Smith who looked after and loved her as well. She was Birchmore's emergency contact and now a huge advocate in fighting for her beloved niece's justice that she deserves. Hashtag justice for Sandra Birchmore. And when you go through so much turmoil in your life, who isn't going to suffer with some mental and emotional issues? A lot of us struggle with them. That doesn't make us any less deserving of thorough investigations and love and being a mom. There's so many moms out there that struggle with their own issues, and they're still a great mom. So that is kind of a summary of Sandra. Stoughton Police Department has sent Birchmore for a psychiatric evaluation for mental illness, but nothing has been revealed to say what prompted this intervention or whether it was voluntary or involuntary. Police officers, medical professionals, and social workers can apply for hospitalization for psych evaluations if someone poses a risk of harm to themselves or others. But why was she sent? What was it, because she really needed it? Or was she talking too much and saying things that police officers wanted people to think that she was just crazy and didn't know what she was talking about? Was it valid or invalid? We don't know at this point. Sandra loved and trusted the police so much that when she was 13, she joined a program called the Explorers Program that Stockton PD and the high school put on. Shortly after joining, 3 officers that ran the program began grooming her as a little girl. Officer Matthew Farwell, who was 27 when Sandra was 15, began statutorily raping Sandra. Officer William Farwell, Matthew's twin brother, and Officer Robert Devine, who is in fact not Devine at all, was 43 at the time, who is now 51. began having inappropriate sexual relationships with Sandra as well. There are possibly 1 to 2 more men involved in this group accused of doing these similar acts. And what do you know? The age of consent in Massachusetts is 16. You can drive a car and consent to sex, but you haven't graduated high school, you can't drink, you can't smoke, you can't vote. But your brain is fully formative to where you can consent. The thing is if you're being groomed, is it really consent? I don't think so. And here is one of the scumbags, Robert Devine, with a picture of him and Sandra when she was in the Explorer program. Look how young she is. I don't like the consent in Massachusetts at 16. It's one of the laws there. Nothing I could do about it. I don't think it's appropriate. I think it should be higher. But that's my opinion, and I am nobody. Here is Officer Matthew Farwell. He is the man that is the suspect in Birchmore's, Sandra's demise. He's also the presumed father of the baby, even though he denies this. And you know what would be great here is if they had done some paternity testing and tested fetal tissue to see if the DNA matched. I think they took some, they just haven't tested it as far as we know. He admitted to having an affair with her, had sex with her about 2 to 3 times, but he claims it was when she was older, like an adult, not 15. An internal investigation found hundreds of text messages, including pictures between Matthew Farwell and Sandra. This officer was terminated, put on the do not hire list, and then decertified finally. But it didn't happen quickly like that. A long time in between certain things. Matthew Farwell knew he was the alleged father, also stating that when he saw her the last time, all he did was break up with her. He didn't do anything else. He was the last one to see her before she died. He also had Sandra babysit for him and his wife's children, with one of them being born around the time that Sandra was killed. So he had a baby that was born about the same time that Sandra was killed, who was pregnant with his baby that was going to be on the way. Looks suspicious. Why? Why? Why did this happen? You have to ask. It seems weird. Now we have Officer William, or Billy Farwell, who is 38, is Matthew's twin brother that also worked at Stockton PD. He knew of his brother's actions. He is said to be one that his brothers passed Birchmore to like a sex toy to be played with. It is said that he did have sexual relationships in a patrol car at least one time. He resigned in disgrace and is said to be working with TSA in New Mexico now. Now back to Officer Robert Devine, who ran the Explorers program when the Farwell brothers participated in it before becoming cops of Stockton PD. So the two Farwells, Matt and Billy, they did the Explorers program as well when they were growing up. And this Officer Robert Devine was in charge of it then. Devine is the oldest predator of the group. He is also said to have had his way with Birchmore in a patrol car, just like William Billy Farwell. Devine already had a history of sex with minors back in 2016. He got caught in a sex scandal with a high school girl. And instead of firing, decertifying him, charging him, any of those things, you know what they did? He was a deputy chief at that time. So, after this incident happened with this minor high school chick, he was just demoted. He went from deputy chief and he was demoted down to just a regular plain old officer. What the hell? Like, this should not be allowed. He should have been gone. This is disgusting. But no, he was just left there to continue to prey on other little girls. Such a sicko. Here is Officer Joshua Hill. He was another officer that was in this thing. He left Stockton Police Department in 2019, and then he ended up becoming an Abington police officer and quickly became the high school resource officer. So this guy, who I don't know that he ever physically, technically touched Sandra Birchmore. There was still some inappropriate stuff, and he knew about inappropriate stuff. He is now a high school resource officer at this point in a school with minor children. Why'd you resign so fast, sir? Abington police did put him on paid leave after the allegations became public. So he's still getting paid, even though they were like, you can't work, you're on administrative leave until we figure out this investigation. The investigation said that he was not credible. He lied about a bunch of things. He was not forthcoming with many things. In the end, he resigned from Abington Police Department sometime in 2023. After all this, he knew about Sandra's relationship with other officers and had some unethical behaviors himself with Birchmore. I don't know if it was just weird texting or that Birchmore went to him and would talk about her boyfriend, Matthew Farwell, or what, but he's in on this. And this man should have never been allowed around children. Now here's the timeline leading up to the death of Sandra Birchmore. So on Monday, February 1st, 2021, at 9:51 a.m., Sandra leaves the building on her phone. At 10:08 a.m., Sandra returns to the building carrying a large box that has a car seat in it, a baby car seat. 10:11 a.m., she leaves again. She's gone and then returns at 1:15 p.m. She returns to the building on her phone, and she has 2 pizza boxes. At 4:39, Sandra leaves once again. 4:41 p.m., she returns to the building, texting on her phone. 5:44, she goes outside for about 2 minutes and then returns at 5:46 with the snow brush and looks at her phone. That 5:46 p.m. is the last time she is ever seen. Then, several hours later, at 9:27 p.m., Matthew Farwell is seen entering with a hoodie and a COVID mask, which apparently he is an anti-masker, so that's weird. Why are you wearing a mask? Your hood, you're not just wearing a hoodie, you're wearing it with the hood up and a mask on, and his hand in his pocket. About 20 minutes later, at 9:56 p.m., Matthew leaves, looks at the camera quick, hand in a pocket, and still with his hood pulled up and his COVID mask on. And looks to be trying to get out of the building a little bit quicker than he just walking in. Why do you need all that stuff? It's very weird. All right, now we are going to play the security camera footage. So we can see that it's February 1st, 2021, which is a Monday, and that it's 17:15, which is about 5:15. All right, so now we're at 17:44. She's going outside. It looks like she puts her hood up, and then 17:46, she's coming back in, takes her hood off, and she has the snow brush and is going back up to her apartment, takes a look at her phone. Now, here we are at 9:27, 21:27. Here's Matthew Farwell. He's got his mask on, he's got a hat, he's got a hood, going in, stomps his boots. Then here we are at 9:56, and he goes to leave. A little bit of a hurry. Let's back that up again, because here he comes out. He looks at the camera, and he goes. No care in the world. But he just went up there to break up with her. That's it. Now, Thursday, February 4th, 2021, Canton Police Department does a wellness check at Sandra's apartment, and that is said to be because she did not show up for work. Canton Police Department, yes, the same Canton Police Department that is involved in the Karen Reed case. They believe she had unalived herself due to finding her with a ligature around her neck. She is found in the seated position, leaning forward with the other end of the strap, of the ligature strap, from a gym bag, it's said to be, on the door handle. Now, and like up against the door. And I'm thinking it happened in her closet, from reports, but this is not a normal way for somebody to unalive themselves. This is usually only seen in prisons where they don't have a lot of things or stuff like that, and they'll do it this way. And if you're like, because obviously if you're sitting, you're not going to be just dangling, but you are, it's the leaning forward and pulling that strap tight is what is said to do this. But it's just not very common. This is 4 days after Sandra Birchmore's last sighting. Matthew Farwell, as I said, was the last person to see her alive. Canton Police Department, which are a few of the same officers that investigated the Karen Read case. Which, if you have watched the Karen Read case and how Canton PD did that investigation, it was botched, it was shoddy, it was horrible. And some of those few same officers are investigating this case. So that makes me question everything almost automatically, because can they actually do a good job investigating? Because I question it. But a few of those officers and a state medical examiner says that no foul play happened, which eventually is looked into later. Now, Dr. Michael Barden, who is a former New York City chief medical examiner who is hired by Birchmore's family for the civil trial, civil suit where they are suing the three officers, he disagrees with the original conclusions of unaliving. Dr. Barden states that he thinks that the cause of death is strangulation and that the manner of death is homicide. Reasons for this are the injuries and the placement of the ligature on the body. He says that Birchmore suffered from a fracture to a small U-shaped bone in the neck, known as the hyoid bone. Wow, I'm being fancy with that pronunciation. Words are hard. This bone rarely, if at all, in an unaliving hang, it rarely happens, if at all, in these types of unaliving incidents. But it does happen in half of homicidal strangulations of women cases. So you wouldn't expect to see that hyoid bone fractured in the way that she supposedly died, with the strap and the doorknob and stuff. It doesn't make sense according to Dr. Michael Barden, the medical examiner. Now, this is probably one of the most disgusting statements I've seen. And it says, in one of the heavily redacted police reports, it says, there is insufficient evidence to prove or disprove that Matthew Farwell violated any laws, in part because investigators would need the testimony of Sandra Birchmore, who is deceased. So let's just wrap it all up. We can't get any testimony from the dead. And since the dead can't talk, we can't prove or disprove things. I'm sorry, what? Isn't that how murder cases are solved? And how you go to court and you try people for murder and homicide? You do it without the testimony of the deceased all the time. There are other ways to go about proving or disproving this. Like looking at phone records, which those seem to have said a lot. But a Canton police officer says, we can't prove or disprove any laws that were violated by this police officer. Back the blue. It's disgusting. Because most of the time, there are very, very few cases where the deceased actually ends up solving their own case or testifying in their own case. It happens very, very rarely. So, according to this officer, Well, we can't prove it because we can't talk to the deceased. It's stupid. There are no words. You don't know if he violated any laws. There are many ways to find this out. It has nothing to do of whether you can talk to Sandra or not. Do your job. And I like myself to back the blue as far as great police personnel, great law enforcement. But am I going to back them blindly? No. Because there are people out there like these police officers in Stockton and in Canton, Norfolk County, Boston, that do not deserve blind backing if this is the type of stuff that they do. It's disgraceful, and it is a slap in the face to people that are great law enforcement officers. And it's a slap in the face to the victims and the victims' families. It's gross. So, in wrapping up this case, this is something that is taken off of the Facebook page and Twitter page of a poster picture thing that they have on there. You can go on Twitter or Facebook for Justice for Sandra Birchmore and find them and follow them to stay up to date. I am going to be keeping you up to date on this case. We will be going over the civil lawsuit. We're going to be going over the police reports and other things that come out with this case. So if you want to stay tuned for it, make sure you hit that like button, subscribe, turn your notifications on, share this case. Let people know that this is not okay. But here's kind of a summary of what the Justice for Sandra Birchmore is before we wrap it up. Sandra Birchmore joined Stockton's Massachusetts Police Explorer program when she was just 13 because she admired and trusted them. Not long after joining, the 3 police officers leading the program began to groom her. One of these officers, Matthew Farwell, began statutorily raping Sandra when she was barely 15. Later, Officer William Farwell and Robert Devine also having sexual relationships with her. At the age of 23, Sandra became pregnant with Matthew Farwell's baby. Matthew was already a father of 3 with his wife and was not happy about the baby on the way. On February 1st, 2021, Matthew Farwell was seen on camera entering the elevator to Sandra's apartment, leaving about 20 to 30 minutes later. Matthew Farwell was the last person to see Sandra Birchmore alive. Upon questioning him, he states that the 2 of them argued, they broke up, and he left. On February 4th, her body was found, hanging from a doorknob. Her highly suspicious death was ruled a suicide. But did she really unalive herself? That's a likely story. Oh, I'm going to say that we broke up, and so that's why she did this, is because we broke up and she just couldn't live anymore without Matthew. It matches his scenario. But is that what really happened? Since Matthew Farwell was the last person to see Sandra alive, why isn't he being investigated further for murder? He certainly had a motive and means to do so. Since there is enough evidence, why hasn't he been charged with essaying a minor among his other crimes? Since they were also involved with Sandra's sexuality, or with Sandra sexually, why haven't William Farwell and Robert Devine been held accountable for their crimes as well? Sandra Birchmore's life mattered, and so did the life of her unborn baby. When will they get a proper investigation by unbiased sources? So that's where we're going to leave today. Is why isn't there investigation further into Matthew Farwell? Why haven't the other men been charged as well when there's proof? Did she really unalive herself? And when is an unbiased, proper investigation going to happen? These are the questions that we are left with currently and that need to be answered. So please go join Sandra Birchmore's family in the Justice for Sandra Birchmore. Leave words of encouragement and kind words in the comments section, and I will see you next time.